Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room. Wishing you a very great start to your day, or perhaps you're picking this up many, many weeks or months later. Wherever you are, however this perhaps particular program is reaching you, thanks so much for making me part of your day, and hope you're having a great one. What a game we saw last night in the Western Conference playoffs. The Los Angeles Lakers, led by Anthony Davis, got a historic performance and turned out one of the instant classics of NBA postseason history. Cannot wait to talk about that game. Rob Dog from Stoddard saw his New York Knicks come up in the clutch, getting beaten by a bunch of undrafted Miami Heat players for majority of the game in New York. The Knicks come up clutch and steal a victory from the Miami Heat in Game 2. We've got football news. One of Aaron Rodgers' best friends in the entire world is, according to reports, going to be signing with the New York Jets. The NFL saw its highest-rated Super Bowl in the history of television programming become this last Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs. And staying in football, and this is something that I don't take delight in bringing up, but I feel that it's newsworthy, so I will give it at least a slight mention. Henry Ruggs III, former Raiders wide receiver who was driving 156 miles intoxicated and killed a woman in Las Vegas, has pled guilty and will, according to many reports, serve anywhere between 3 to 10 years in prison. The ultimate prison term for Ruggs could have been up to 50 years had he not decided to plead guilty. So, big news in football. Great games last night in the NBA postseason. And, of course, we're going to be stoked to talk to our friend Mike Schmidt coming up at about 8:30 this morning. If you want to jump in the program, I see UW Wells Thomas is already up and at it. Our YouTube feed, our Facebook group page, and my Facebook profile, as well as Twitch, all accept comments in. Again, if you want to work yourself into the program, that's the best way to do it. I love that Thomas is taking over for me in this respect, because I'm tired of playing weatherman. Thomas, I'm with you, dude. Looks like we're coming up on some good weather the next 7 to 8 days. Thomas says it looks like summer weather, and Thomas, it does not look anything like summer weather. It's 64 today if we're lucky, and it'll be in the low 70s. That's very much early spring weather to me, but I hear what you're saying. It's a lot better than what we'd been dealing with lately, which, listen, guys and gals, maybe somebody else can give me another time in which they remember May the 3rd. I'm looking out my window here, the Trauma Center studio window. I'm looking out my window, and there are no leaves on the tree outside of this window. This is a full, lush green tree. Now, they're starting to bud around us and get some of the trees around us to begin budding and having leaves, but I have never seen trees in this area go so long without actually having leaves on them. So correct me if you think that you can. Tell me another time in which you saw, the month of May start without there actually being leaves on it. Anyhow, I digress. Thomas, you're absolutely right. The weather is looking fantastic, spectacular. And as a matter of fact, if you want to get yourself outside to the patio today, Recov, open at 11. I'll be behind the bar. Come on out, have some lunch with me. We had a busy day yesterday. Was not necessarily expecting such a robust Tuesday. Busy day. You can tell folks are really jonesing to get outside. And Thomas, I think you're right. If this weather holds, man, after going through a protracted winter, which has lasted into May, this fucker is going to feel like summer. That's for sure. P1 Breacher's checking in this morning. Greetings. Greetings to you, sir. Hope you're off to a great start. Trempolo, Galesville. That's where my dog's going to be spending a couple of weeks starting next Monday. Jason and his family are going to be happy to, thank you, Jason, host Leo, my dog, as I go down to Florida and check out some of what Tampa and Clearwater have to offer. By the way, spoke to our good buddy Bob Ibeck, used to be a contributor here on the program just yesterday and the day before yesterday. Bob and I are working out some really cool stuff, including giving me like an inside tour, like a seat and an inside tour at the Tropicana Park, Tropicana Field, right? Down there in St. Petersburg, the Tampa area, to watch these historic Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay wins yesterday against Pittsburgh. They're 24-6 through the first 30 games of the regular season. That's only happened, from what I could tell this morning, like 3 times in Major League Baseball history. 24-6. So, Bob, if you're watching this morning, if you're listening later, thanks so much. Cannot wait to meet some of the Rays staff. And who knows? Maybe Uncle Dave will find some way to work himself into the Rays team. I've got a lot of experience with professional sports, and boy, is it really fun when you actually get to work for a team. Then, guys and gals, you get to use the term we, right? We. All right, Rob Dog is checking in with us here. Rob Dog had some local baseball, but Rob Dog says, Dave, they're calling for rain chances as soon as it warms up for Thursday. Typical for this year. Yeah, fuck that, man. Thursday, whatever. I saw that too. A little bit of rain coming with 70s. I'll take that. And by the way, when it says 30% chance of rain, that actually doesn't mean that there's a 30% chance that you will get rained on. It means that 30% of the area in which the weather is actually being, which is actually being tracked in, say, your local area, 30% of the area is perhaps going to experience rain. I just found that out a few weeks ago. And now it's like the Mandela effect. Did I always know that? Did everybody always know that? And we just didn't talk about it? Or is this something new that now meteorologists are throwing out there so that the uninitiated like myself, Rob Dog and Stoddard and the others, wouldn't be able to shit on the meteorologists so much when they say 30% chance of rain and it never rains? I don't know. Jason P1 Breacher checking in again saying Tampa rolling along. You betcha they are, 24-6, and said Uncle Dave will be networking Rays for sure. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And Thomas, you say it also means a 70% chance of no rain. No, that's also not what it means. That's what I'm getting at. According to what is now supposedly common knowledge, when it says 30% chance of rain, it means 30% of the area affected may see rain. So if we look at this area as, let's say, anything from Galesville on down to, I don't know, DeSoto, if they say there's a 30% chance of rain in the area, then what they're basically saying is that 30% of the people in that area, Thomas, could see rain. But I used to think the very same thing. Hey, if it's 30% chance of rain, it means there's 70% chance that it won't rain. Turns out that's actually not what it means. All right, we've got a poll question for you guys and gals. Facebook group page, Twitter, @TheSportsCarney. Who amongst these two play-in teams, the Miami Heat, who are now tied 1 game apiece with the Knicks, or the Los Angeles Lakers, who I cannot wait to talk about, who beat the Warriors last night behind an epic performance from AD? Which of those two NBA play-in teams have the best shot, you think, to make it to the conference finals? And this is something to recall. Besides the Heat and the Lakers, there have never been play-in teams to actually win a playoff series. So both the Heat and Lakers sort of made history together this year, a number 7, number 8 seed, NBA play-in teams to win their first-round series. So which of those two do you think has the best shot to make it to the conference finals? Which, if either of these teams win their series, they will advance to the conference finals. So take this morning's poll question. I'll get some early results coming up in just a few. As I've mentioned, Mike Schmidt, NSU Wolves, our uniquely qualified weekly guest, will be jumping aboard about 8:30 this morning. And if you want to reach out, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Saying good morning to some new friends of ours. Contractor Supply in West Salem and Baraboo. By the way, pros know where to go when they want the best quality lumber at the best prices, decking, roofing, siding materials, and the best service. That's why they're your partner in building excellence. We'll be back here on the Sports Carnival. Stay tuned. Contractor Supply in West Salem and Baraboo is your partner in building excellence. Seasoned pros know that Contractor Supply offers the very best selection on high-quality building materials at the very best prices with the best service in both West Salem and Baraboo. My friends Kevin and Nick and the entire staff at Contractor Supply in West Salem and Baraboo are your partner in building excellence for a very good reason. Check them out online, contractorsupplyws.com, or stop into the showroom in West Salem or Baraboo.
Do you agree with it overall? Do you like the concept, the idea that these guys can make money off their name? I mean, is that something you are kind of more traditional in the way you think?
No, heck yeah. If you can make money off your, I mean, why wouldn't they? That's my feeling. I'm not like that traditionalist that
right.
Oh, college athlete, it should be pure and all this. You got an opportunity to make money off what you do and how your performance is on the field or on the court or whatever. Why shouldn't you be able to?
Well, I wonder how does that work in the locker room though? When you got superstars that are making money and you got the lineman that's next to you. He's not getting any money from anywhere. I wonder how do you navigate that as a coach? Obviously, I know you don't deal with that now, but I would imagine that could be a bit of a sticky situation.
Well, I mean, you don't even look at NIL, right? You just look at Russell Wilson and the Broncos, right? Like, the same thing, right? Like, they gave all that guy all that money, and nobody can really say anything to him. And you're going to get a coach loses his job because of his performance. So it's probably similar.
I just love it, man. Seeing Chad's face on the program always makes me smile. Want to remind you that Sports Carnival snippets, those little things that I'm sprinkling into the program the last couple of days, are still available to watch, to download, to listen to. Go to any of my social media feeds at the Sports Carney if you're looking for some of those little nuggets. We try to produce them as often as possible when something really funny, really good, really cool happens on the show. Recently, we have just been inundated. I mean, so much news, so many new things going on, and me being out of town a lot, that we haven't done a ton of the new Sports Carnival snippets, but it's always fun to sort of look back at some of the conversations that we've had in the past. That one, of course, includes one of our great friends, Tuesday contributor, UWL head football coach Matt Janis, whose Eagles team is now less than 20 days away from taking off for Italy. What an incredible trip that's going to be. Looks like we've got Tom, UWL, checking back in. He says it's National Skilled Trades Day today. All right. Now, that's not National Calendar correspondent Mike Byers. Mike Byers might say, hey, hold on a second, Thomas. You're taking my thunder here. And you're taking my thunder. Well, steal my shit. But, Thomas, I appreciate you. Jason P1 Breacher checking back in from the farm and saying, quote, the horse guy, made a house call, fixed my hydraulic hose and the skid steer yesterday. Top notch and was quick. That sounds, it sounds like something that I could turn into a really naughty take. He said hose guy. Perfect. Even better. I said horse guy. The hose guy made a house call. Yeah, I think I've been called that once or twice. The hose guy. And that's exactly what I said. Listen, I'm going to come over and I'm going to fix your hydraulic hose. And by the way, those rug burns you had, that's just from my skid steer. Top-notch work for sure. And, properly motivated, I can get in and out pretty quick. I mean, at this age, it's taken me a little bit longer to fix the hydraulic pressure. And, when you've got an ample hose, sometimes as you get older, it takes just a bit longer. But needless to say, properly motivated for sure. In and out quick. Jason, great stuff, man. Appreciate that. Hey, poll question time, boys and girls. Check us out, Twitter at the Sports Carney again, and our Facebook group page. Talking about this Laker team, this Knicks team, or this Heat team. Heat lost to the Knicks last night. Both of these teams, the Lakers and the Heat, play-in teams this year. Both of these teams won their first-round playoff series. Of course, the Heat beat our Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. Lakers got the best of the Memphis Grizzlies in 6. They became the first 2 play-in teams in the history of the play-in tournament, which is not that long, to win a first-round playoff series, any playoff series. And now, of course, they're both situated at least somewhat nicely. Heat 1-1, Lakers up 1-0 to potentially win another series. But which amongst these two teams do you think has the best shot to win the series? Right now, it's close. Our Twitter feed has 55.5, 44.5 going Lakers over the Heat. So 55-45, Lakers have the best shot to come out on top of their second-round series against Golden State. 84-16 on our Facebook group page. 84-16. Listen, the Lakers, and this is not something that I have to hide from you, are one of my favorite teams, not just NBA teams, but I think all-time fandom, I'm more of a fan of the Lakers than I've ever been a fan of any other team. More of a fan of the Lakers than any major league team. I grew up a Dodger fan. I love the Brewers, who are playing some good ball too, by the way. Let's not sleep on the Crew. But I grew up a fan of the Dodgers, the Lakers. The NFL for me in Los Angeles, and I've had this conversation with Matt downstairs at the Recov often, which kind of boggles his mind. The NFL for me was not like a big fandom thing until I got into my late teens and early 20s, largely due to betting and the fact that the NFL's broadcast kept changing and kept getting more dynamic. We lost the Rams early when I was a kid. The Raiders were never really my dad's thing because that was an Oakland team. So even when they were in Los Angeles, a lot of the parents in and around 1984, 85 didn't love the connotations that came with the Raiders and some of the violence they were associated with, which I thought was cool. But again, I wasn't a fan of the Raiders. I wasn't a fan of the Rams. So I didn't have this overwhelming love for an NFL team like Matt and many of you do, for the Bears and the Packers respectively. So the Lakers to me filled that entire void. Like that was the team. And for obvious reasons, right? I was born in 1980. The first 10 years of my life, the Lakers were in the finals fucking nearly every single year and win 5 championships. So it kind of creates a pretty instant fan of yours, a pretty instant fan of you. But what we're seeing, going back to the conversation about which of these two teams, the Heat or the Lakers, could come out most likely out of this second round to make it to the conference finals, this Lakers team is getting a Hall of Fame worthy performance from Anthony Davis and has through the first round of the series, and especially last night. They're getting the Anthony Davis, this Lakers team, the exact Anthony Davis that the Lakers traded for. When the Lakers give up Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, draft picks, good God, that's a lot. Josh Hart was huge for the Knicks last night. Brandon Ingram's been an all-star. Lonzo Ball, say what you will, his injuries, keep him down, but really good player. And a lot of draft picks. That's a haul. And you want Anthony Davis, if you're the Lakers, to be that guy to give up that much. Well, in the bubble, he was. Anthony Davis was dominant in the bubble. Don't forget, he was the finals MVP, right? Anthony Davis was amazing in the bubble. He was doing it from outside, though. If you recall that bubble series and really the whole bubble playoffs, he was doing it from outside. This Anthony Davis is dominating from the inside. And the Golden State Warriors, who I talked about last night when I was downstairs bartending, a lot of people in there trying to watch the game or getting ready to watch the game. The Golden State Warriors coming off a really tough series to Sacramento. That 7-game series was tough, but Sacramento played zero defense, zero in comparison to what this Lakers team plays, which on an efficiency basis is the highest performing, best defense in the NBA postseason, not really even close. The other thing is Sacramento had nobody inside. Domantas Sabonis is a nice player, but he got bullied out by Kevon Looney. The Warriors have no size, and the Lakers have a lot of size. They've got size they're not even using right now. Anthony Davis, in and of himself, was so dominant last night. The Warriors really had no idea, no game plan, and no way to stop him. 30 points, 23 rebounds, 5 assists, crucial block shot of Steph Curry coming down the middle of the lane in the final seconds of the game. And look at how dominant Davis was when you see the names that he's now in the same breath with. Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Elgin Baylor, the only players in Laker team history to have a 30-20 game in the playoffs. This isn't just stats for the sake of stats. This was an absolute domination down low. If you didn't watch the game, if you're just not a Laker fan, if you're, one of our Facebook group members that's checking in funny street clothes, went to Kohl's and got himself some new clothes. I love that, by the way. Got himself some new cloth. Maybe you didn't see how dominant Davis was, but he was. And the Warriors are going to have a dog of a time figuring out what to do with him. I believed this since the Warriors-Laker matchup was announced once the Warriors beat the Sacramento Kings, that if Davis plays this kind of basketball, and not that he's going to get 30 and 20 every single night, but if he plays this kind of basketball, there is no chance for the Warriors to win the series. The other thing, and I know that it seems, kind of crazy to say, the other thing is this: at 38 years old, LeBron James can still be the best player on the court at any given moment. Now, he's not the best player on the court at all times. And last night, what did he shoot? 9 for 24, but still had over 20 points and a dozen rebounds, something of the sort. But at times, and when he needs to be, LeBron James can still be the best player on the court at 38. I had a rare instance in which I was talking to my kid, John. He works now later, and I didn't get home until 10:30 or something last night from the bar. But we're having an instance in which we're watching a game. It's a late game. It's a Laker game. And we're watching LeBron James do things, Anthony Davis do things that are just so special. And one of the things that John pointed out was how incredible it was for LeBron at this age to be that dominant. Michael, Kobe, none of them as physically dominant at the particular age that LeBron is. And when you couple that with what AD does, when you put a D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves on the court who had big moments and came up really, really clutch, you see a recipe for this Laker team to make it through not just the Warriors, but perhaps all the way to the NBA Finals. Now, Rob Dog from Stoddard's checking in and asking, or basically stating how great a Lakers-Nuggets 7-game series would be. I agree. And that would be one of the only series in which I think we would see a true test of Nikola Jokic and what it is that he could or couldn't do. Because when the Lakers won the NBA championship, they faced the Nuggets in the conference finals, swept them in 4 games, dominated them, annihilated them. That was a different situation. I understand the bubble was really tough, and who knows what went into that psychologically for Denver. They're a different team now, a couple of years later, more mature. But Anthony Davis versus Joel Embiid, that's the matchup that we as NBA fans deserve. I love that, Rob. I really do, because that would be such a juicy finals. A 2-time MVP, did not get his 3rd in a row, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Forgot to sprinkle that in. But 2-time MVP against a guy in Anthony Davis right now who is playing as high a level of basketball as there could possibly be. Again, I'm stunned from what I saw last night from AD. Not that he can't perform like that, but that he had to. And when the Lakers needed him, he was right there. And that's something that you haven't always been able to say for AD. He hasn't always been right there when you need him, which is why he got the best nickname ever from Charles Barkley, Street Clothes, which is just funny shit. All right, but I mentioned Nikola Jokic, 2-time MVP, did not win his 3rd, which I did not think he should, simply because the 3-time in a row MVP winners have had chips to go along with their other hardware, their MVP hardware, specifically championships, and Nikola has not got one of those yet. But after much begging, much whining, much social media pleading, and let's face it, a really great season, Joel Embiid finally becomes the NBA MVP. 33 points a game this year, 55% from the field, 10 boards, 4 assists, and nearly 2 blocks. You cannot take anything away from Joel Embiid. He played fantastic. Joel Embiid narrowly did edge out Nikola Jokic and Giannis, the top 3 vote getters for this MVP. And listen, you can't say that he didn't deserve it. The Sixers right now, by the way, have not lost a playoff game. And even though Embiid did not play in game 1 versus the Celtics, and may not even play in game 2, he still had a fantastic season and helped propel this Philadelphia team to a number 3 seed, which now is looking like, again, up 1-0 on the Celtics. They may be one of the most dangerous teams in the East. They may even be the favorite to come out of the East at this point with no Milwaukee there. But he finally does get his MVP. Again, 33, 10, 4, and 2. Normally, I would say absolutely clear-cut MVP. But again, this is a regular season award. And I don't necessarily think that in all respects we give these awards, that players and writers give these awards based upon who had the greatest impact on the team, who was truly the most valuable player. Because I think when you look at that Bucks team, 58 wins in the regular season, lose Giannis in the first game of the playoffs, and lose to a play-in team in the Heat, you could pretty much make an argument that Giannis is a more valuable player than Joel Embiid, because conversely, Joel Embiid already injured, out for game 1 against the Celtics on the road, Sixers win. So you could make that argument. I wouldn't give the Denver Nuggets much of a puncher's chance if Nikola Jokic wasn't playing. He could actually be, again, more valuable than Joel Embiid. And then let's call this guy out here. He's a Knick, Jalen Brunson. I don't know if the Knicks win any fucking games without Jalen Brunson on their team, right? So he may be a more valuable player. But narrative, Embiid's been lobbying for this for a while. Skill set, you can't deny this guy is silky smooth. Some of the best big man moves that we've seen in some time. When motivated, he can be a stopper on defense. And when motivated, he can be a force on the glass. He's definitely a great player, skill-wise. I just don't really trust Embiid because he's always injured. He missed his first 2 full seasons in the NBA, for God's sakes. And then he's just, what is he, 30 to 40 games a year you can basically pencil him in to miss. I don't love that, right? Like, I know Giannis takes some nights off and deals with maintenance on his knee, load management, whatever. But outside of a big injury, Giannis is pretty much suiting up. Joel Embiid always feels like he's getting injured. Joel Embiid has never been in what I would consider elite shape. That was probably part of the reason why early on in his career he had such struggles with injuries, something that Zion Williamson is having to deal with too. I mean, these dudes are big, right? They might not look it on TV, but these are massive individuals. And if you're not in elite shape, that can take a real toll on your body. I mean, it really, really can. Again, putting all that aside, Joel Embiid had a great season, MVP-worthy season. And it really is about narrative. You might not think it is, but it is. I won't pick on Steve Nash because he was a great player, but Steve Nash won 2 NBA MVPs in a row in the midst of a stretch of play by Kobe and others that was spectacular. I mean, spectacular. Nash was a really good player, really good, assist guy, good shooter. Got that Phoenix team that under 7 seconds, a lot of what the Warriors are kind of doing now, ball off the ground. By the way, Steve Kerr was the GM of the Phoenix Suns for a while back in those days too. The point is, Nash got these 2 MVPs. I don't believe that he deserved them. I really don't. There were other guys that should have gotten, Kobe specifically, the MVP over him, but narrative. People like the narrative of what Steve Nash did. So I can't knock Joel Embiid for lobbying for this thing for the last couple of years, for playing great basketball, for getting Philadelphia into a pretty enviable position as the number 3 seed and picking up his first MVP award. But again, I would make the argument that most valuable is really kind of a sliding scale, and it doesn't always mean who becomes the MVP of the league. As crazy as that would sound, because it says it right there in the name. All right, speaking of names, uniquely qualified, world's best dad, future head coach in the NFL or D1 college, whichever he chooses, now still out there in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Mike Schmidt will be joining the program coming up next. Stick around, 40 seconds.
What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just a regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
You betcha, Toyota. I'll be back there at the Recov today. 11 o'clock we open. Come and see us for some lunch. It should be a gorgeous day. We've already had Thomas with our weather report. I'm going to be feeling like summer weather. I disagree. I think 64 to 70 is not summer yet, more like spring. However, Mike Schmidt, Northern State Wolves head coach, probably going to pour cold water on that and say, no, in Aberdeen, 64 to 70 is like summer, right, Mike? I mean, that's probably about as good as it gets. Or do you guys get into the 150 range for like that month and a half or something before you go into the freezer again?
The hotter is a little hot, a little hotter than normal. The colder is a little colder than normal. So we do get it all. I was out coaching youth baseball on Monday night. We had baseball finally, first weekend of game or first day of games, and I'm out there Monday night feeding the pitching machine and all this, and it was about 50-mile-an-hour winds and 50 degrees. It was just miserable. Kids are out playing in jackets and hooded sweatshirts up over their batting helmets even. And, then yesterday it was like 65 and sunny and nice and a calm breeze that we had. That's out here. A calm breeze is 15 to 20. So, it was a calm breeze. And, people were out in their Speedos and tank tops. I mean, man, it was out here. You get a little sunshine, you better relish it, because about 6 months a year is just straight winter.
Yeah, exactly. And we're largely the same here in La Crosse right now. I know we're not as harsh as far as the weather is for you up there, but it's just been long. I was mentioning earlier this morning, I look out and the trees just don't have leaves on them yet. I've never seen this, Mike, and you've lived in the area for a long time. It's May the 3rd. I mean, it's fucking Cinco de Mayo this weekend, and I've got no leaves on trees yet. Like, really? I thought I'd be walking around naked in this place, having this thing blocked off. Not so much, man.
Not at all. Not at all right now. But you know what? It only gets worse, Dave. It doesn't get better. So like all this, everybody that wants it to be whatever, it doesn't get better, man. So it'll be all right.
Well, that's all right. I'm gonna do something for the group. I'm gonna take a trip to Florida to make sure that I give you guys reports and or just pokes and prods from the land of very nice weather. Again, for a majority of the year, there's times in Florida which you don't want to be there either. It's called like the middle of summer. So anyways, we won't bitch too much about that. I was just, the reason I really thought about that, A, I promoted the recovery room on the way back in, and B, I was putting together, some extra video clips for the show, and I used one of you and myself and Chad from December. It looks exactly the same out of your office now as it did in December, and I just did this double take like, this never ends, does it, for him? The field, everything looks exactly the same. So it was another reason that I brought that up.
I love it, man. It hasn't. It's been Groundhog Day here forever. Since December, it has been awful. So we're in it, man. But hey, we're coming out, and I got golf league tonight. I got men's league tonight. We're golfing. That's a good sign. I don't really love golf, but I do like it as an excuse to go out and drive around and be outside. And out here, it's really great during the summer because we're so far west and so far north. So we're so far west in Central Time that it's like we play golf until like 10 o'clock at night. So you can play after work, and it's like it sucks getting kids to bed in the summertime, but it's great for golfing. So we start men's league. We're out of it. We're ready to roll, baby, with some good golf and ready to move on to summertime. We're gonna you're going to Florida. I'm playing golf. We're gonna will this thing into existence.
I love this. And summertime was created for parents to not have to worry about when their kids go to bed. That's just something. Kids, take note. Make sure to use Uncle Dave as your reference point for that. Mike, so many different directions that I'd love to go with you. If you could just play along with me today, we're gonna bounce and we're gonna do our thing because we're nimble. Starting with the breaking news that actually kind of popped up right before I began putting the show on air this morning. Randall Cobb, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter and multiple reports, is going to be signing with the Jets. Mike, this is nothing more than window dressing, I don't think. Give me your reaction to Cobb. Now, according to Schefter, going to the Jets to be with Aaron.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers, the GM. Here we go, baby. We'll see how this thing works. What's funny to me about this whole thing is for how long, when you look at this, how long Packers fans were like, man, I've been a big proponent of Allen Lazard, but most Packer fans are like, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, these have been guys and names that we've been just so ho-hum on and been like, these guys can't get it done. And now Rodgers is like, no, the guys I'm going to ride with are Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. I don't know. The one thing that I have a little hard time with some of that is, and Aaron's been like, he kind of teeters between being the villain and this like guy that just is all about love and peace and harmony. I'm like, wait, are you the villain today? Are you the bad guy? Are you which guy are you today? I'm not really quite sure in this exit from Green Bay. But like a lot of these guys owe so much of their career to the Packers and selecting these guys and developing them. I mean, look at Allen Lazard. They believed in that guy the whole way through as an undrafted free agent and getting him this money. Like, I don't know. Some of this just rubs me the wrong way with the lack of gratitude to the Packers organization and what they've been. But hey, this doesn't move the needle at all. We all watch Randall Cobb every weekend here now these last couple of years after it's all about the people and we got to get this guy back. And he means so much to the organization. And maybe they'll help the organization on the other side of it win and they'll be great mentors. But on the field, this doesn't move the needle at all.
I think that when you mention Rodgers, I'm obviously hearkening back to something that I'm sure our school children are reading often, American literature, and Walt Whitman's famed long poem, I Contain Multitudes. And I'm sure that's what Aaron is trying to project here because, this is largely window dressing. Randall Cobb's a nice guy. I realize that he and Aaron are friends. He hasn't played a full season. And, Mike, this was my big knock on him when he came back to the Packers a couple of years ago, since 2014. Okay, that was 10 years ago, right? Like 9 years ago. That's a long time. In the NFL, you don't get better and more healthy with age. So I don't really understand what this does for the Jets except for possibly make Aaron feel better. And secondly, and I'm curious to get your take on this, sort of rankle, I wouldn't say piss anybody off yet, but sort of rankle, let's say veteran receivers or even young receivers, like how comfortable do we need to make this guy right? Like this team was supposed to be turnkey, ready to go, plug and play. If you're a vet on the Jets, so wait, now you don't get to eat anymore. And if you're a younger player, so am I going to be taking a backseat to Lazard now and Randall Cobb because these are his two friends? Like, will I be missing targets because Randall Cobb's out there? And it's not that Cobb can't play in some respects, but you're right, Mike. Packer fans have largely been saying, boy, Lazard and Cobb, okay, but not awesome. And when you're screaming for more wide receiver help and everybody's begging for all these offensive players, but yet they're there, I just don't know what it does. Do you think that as a coach, there is a potential that Rodgers turns some of the players off? And I don't know about piss them off yet because they haven't played, but could something like this turn players off because it seems like, man, we're really coddling this dude?
Winning helps everything. And so that it depends on how they start and get off with the season and what they'll do. I think, that'll be a big part of this, but yeah, without a doubt. I mean, how many wide receivers are they going to have? I mean, like how many catches can Randall Cobb get? I mean, if you're Corey Davis and you're these other guys that are there, like how many catches is this guy going to get, or are you going to get, or this guy's going to come in and just run routes at 35 years old and show me how great things are going? Like, I guess I don't really get that. Maybe there's a respect level, and it just like, man, there's ways in life. And I look at this parallel in my career that I go to places and I've been a fixer, and I've been a guy that's gone to places that largely hadn't been having success in the near future. Coaches that have been fired, whatever what the case might be. And then you can turn it around. And it's really easy to be just functional early on. And so you can turn it around and be good. And that's, that's an easy thing in the career. What's really hard is then to take a place that hasn't won at all, get them to be respectable, and then get that hump into a playoff situation, championship contending situation, et cetera. That's really difficult because now you're trying to teach people who haven't done those things to get to that level. The Jets haven't even been in the playoffs, haven't had a playoff win since 2010. So when you look at an organization, this feels like it's just so easy, and it's so Rodgers, right? This guy masquerades around as he's so smart, and he's talking to people who are idiots and have low IQ levels that don't understand stuff. So then he feels like he's smart, and then now you get to go into this locker room and be like, this is how you play football, and look at this route here, and look at this route here. This feels like it's so easy to then just get them to the playoffs or be mediocre. And that, like this, to me, these moves just encapsulate what Aaron Rodgers is and who he is, that it's really easy to go to those spots and turn it around to go to the playoffs. I mean, there's been some bad teams that have made it to the playoffs these last few years.
You bet.
And these are moves like that may help them do that. But this is an organization that's like all in and is trading all these draft picks. They're all in on and just busted with Zach Wilson. They're all in on winning a Super Bowl like right now. And that has not been Aaron Rodgers' a modus operandi to go and go win that all in thing. He seems to really like being the team that's an underdog, overlooked, and then getting to be respectable. That's pretty easy. The really hard part is the next part, that next challenge of getting in and taking it to the next step.
Oh, Aaron is loving the attention right now. He's on Broadway, and I think that's fine, right? Like, enjoy yourself, live your best life. No knocks as a man on how you go about that. No problem. As soon as he has an incompletion, an interception, that O-line breaks down. He gets folded up like a piece of paper, and God forbid somebody's got to come in for a play or two like Zach Wilson. He hears boo birds. That is going to really flip the script for him, because he is not one of those. He's not one of those guys that is able to, at least from what I've noticed in Green Bay, about the softest of landing spots that you could possibly be in from a fan and a media perspective. He's not one of those guys that wants to fight the slings and arrows that come with it. Something else that now I just thought of is, you mentioned Zach Wilson's name and what they had last year. I saw Zach Wilson practicing with Aaron Rodgers. You're a coach. You're the GM essentially of your college football team. What the hell do they do with this kid? Because this is now something I can't figure out, right? Like, you're basically telling him he's cooked. Is Rodgers supposed to coach this kid up? What do they do with Zach Wilson?
Well, you got to have him sit there and collect his paychecks and hope he doesn't go in the game at this point now, because who are you going to put in the game? I mean, Tim Boyle, Rodgers' longtime backup third string guy. Like, is that who you're gonna go put him in the game if something happens to Rodgers? Like, that can't possibly be right. I mean, they're all in on Aaron. If something happens to Aaron, this is bad. You're gonna what are you gonna do? Are you gonna go to Zach Wilson? Which is why, again, the Packers had all the leverage the whole time to go and get these guys, because there was to go and get the picks they wanted, because there was no other course of action for the Jets here. There was no plan B in any of this. Zach Wilson was their plan B on all of this, right? But that's why I think when you look at draft picks, which I really thought was kind of funny from Woody Johnson and the GM's perspective. Help me out with his name right now. It's
Joe Douglas.
Joe Douglas's perspective. You just picked Zach Wilson.
Yes.
Like the draft picks don't matter unless the guy picking them is really good at what he does, which is why I think the Packers are. That's Goody picking all those people. He must have really loved his draft board. I said that yesterday with you and Joe. He must have really loved what he saw there. And so that's a guy that you can trust, because you can look at his track record on drafting and developing guys, especially mid-round guys. And the Jets, their pick is Zach Wilson. I mean, trade away as many picks as it would ever take for your organization to get Aaron Rodgers or somebody like that, because you're not using your picks wisely anyway. So, that was always the thing to me in this whole negotiation. But Zach Wilson can't play. We watched that last year, and the guys they threw out there, and Mike White being like, Mike White is just doing awesome. This is so much fun as the Jets.
Mike White t-shirts.
They win 7 games, and cool. That's awesome that Mike White did a good job with a functional team. But Zach Wilson, he's got to sit there. That he's going to collect his paycheck. He'll probably go down as one of the biggest busts ever, and bounce out of there at some point when he's done. And I think the Jets are saying, hopefully Aaron Rodgers can get him to be the talent that they saw when they selected him so high in the draft, so that when Aaron is done in 2 years, that maybe Zach Wilson is 3rd or 4th year in, that they know what they have. But I just don't think that's the case. You know what you have. You've been with them for a year. He either has it and you were going to build around him, or he doesn't. So I think they're going to sit on him here these next couple of years. He's going to be a 3rd and 4th round, or a 3rd and 4th string quarterback, maybe emergency in some of these things. He'll collect his paycheck, and they'll have to get rid of him here in a year or two.
I could see him, Zach Wilson, that is becoming a member of the New Jersey Generals or one of the teams in the XFL. And I'm not knocking him for that. He's just too fucking small, and he has no temperament to be an NFL quarterback, which is another reason I think that Jordan Love, who got that, it wasn't a 5th-year extension yesterday, but it was a reworked contract, right? But I think that's the reason the Packers have been so all in on him. And you've talked about this before. The kid, at least tangentially through some of your players. He's got good temperament, and he's weathered the entire Aaron Rodgers saga as perfectly as anybody could. Do you know why we know this? Because we have not heard anything from Jordan Love, which is exactly what you want to hear from somebody in that situation. Wilson makes too much noise off the field, and he's just too small. And I know that this is kind of a hard left turn as we've got the Packers full draft, board in front of us, but that's why I think that Carolina will regret the day that they drafted Bryce Young. I understand the kid is very talented. He's too small. He's 5'10" and 3/4. Kyler Murray is that small. He is not going to last. Maybe Kyler, maybe Bryce Young have a little bit more years than Zach Wilson has. I just don't know if you can win with anybody that small. I think it just keeps getting proven year in and year out. There are flukes. Russell Wilson's one of one. Cool. Put him over in that box. Everybody else, Doug Flutie and the like, they just can't play. They're too small. So there's that. Now, back to the Packer draft. You did talk about this with us on Monday, Mike, and I just wanted to give this a couple of seconds to breathe here. The Packer draft board, 13 picks, the most that they have picked in a long time, to me fell perfectly for Green Bay. I understood the Lucas Van Ness thing, but I was going through a lot of prediction measurements, machine, AI tools, and they all had Van Ness going, if not to the Packers at 13, being their second choice if one of their other players didn't fall to them. And that's who they went with. Okay, break us down. What did you like the most? Anything that you see on here that you were kind of lukewarm on?
No, I love the Van Ness pick a lot. As soon as he hit the numbers he hit at the combine, I said Packers. I remember with my staff vividly, as soon as and I saw those numbers come across, I'm like, that's a space alien. Those are unbelievable testing numbers that he just put up at the combine. So as soon as that happened, I'm like, Packers. That guy had Packers written all over him the whole time. You knew that he was going to be on their board to love him. As much as we all probably wanted Smith and Jigba, They clearly show that they don't value that position in the first round. They just don't value that. They did trade up to get Christian Watson in the second round early on last year, and so they see that's part of it. I thought they might look around to trade those picks up to get wide receivers, but they clearly love Jaden Reed. I love Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed is an absolute burner. What a great compliment here to Christian Watson on the outside. So I love that pick. Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, absolute aliens, freaks of nature out walking around on this planet that should not exist. That these guys are absolute freaks. Tucker Kraft, hey, quick kind of tie into Northern State here. Tucker Kraft's cousin, Hank Kraft, is a freshman on our football team right now, and he is one of the best, most freakish athletes on our football team as a freshman. He's got the highest vertical jump. He's got the farthest broad jump. He's one of our fastest guys. So Tucker Kraft's cousin, Hank Kraft, is going to be the next Kraft from Timberlake that's going to be on one of these boards someday. Can you help me get him on this show? Oh, I mean, I can. He is a man of very few words, Hank Kraft is. That's a very that is a man of very few words. And Tucker Kraft is just a man of the people. Like this guy, I talked to him last year when we were at a camp there, and he knew his cousin was coming to our place, and he had a brother who played here, and another, all this stuff that he had connections in Northern State, and he's from Timberlake, South Dakota, which is about 100 miles west of here, middle of nowhere. And so we talked a lot. That was when he was going through being offered all the NIL deals from the SEC schools and turned him down to stay at SDSU. And he'll be a folk legend here in this state forever. That he spurned Alabama. He spurned all these teams that were offering him hundreds of $1,000s in cash to stay at SDSU. They won their first national championship. And then he gets drafted to the Packers in the third round. So Tucker Kraft is just an unbelievable story out here. He is a freak show. Now, whatever anybody wants to talk about, not dominating his level, whatever, he didn't really have a chance to this past year because he was injured. He got hurt right away against Iowa in their first game of the year. He came back and was big for them. But I don't know that had anything to do with Tucker Kraft as much as it had to do with probably just figuring out how to use him and utilize what he does in the offense last year. So Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave are freaks, and they are going to be absolute plug and play. Day one, these two guys are going to play for the Packers in some way, shape, or form. So I love those picks. And I just thought, like, hey, Goody's going to make a move here, and they're going to start moving up the board. After you saw that third round pick, I'm like, they're going to start moving around here to go get some guys. And they didn't. And that lunatic sat there and took 13 guys. I thought this guy, this crazy mofo is going to pick all these dudes right now. And he did. And he did. Like, he must have just loved what was happening there on the bottom, getting some of those guys at the end of it. So I love the wide receiver from Charlotte pick. I love the Carrington Valentine. I wanted to bring Grant Dubois up because not a lot of people watch Charlotte football this year. They play in a small D1 conference, like D1A or something. I've seen some tape on this kid. He pops, man. He pops. And for a 7th round pick, I mean, you're talking about extreme value there. I mean, extreme value. Extreme value there. I thought the Dontavian Wicks pick is the same kind of concept out of Virginia in the 4th round, that Wicks and Dubois and these guys at the wideouts that they took there, unbelievable value of athletically of who they are. They are freak show players. So it'll be interesting to see who sticks. Like, they're trying to get it figured out. But if you're some of these guys that they picked last year, you got to be like, well, I better get my agent ready to make some phone calls here come fall camp time. So I still think the Packers need to bring in somebody who's been in the NFL for more than an hour. Sure. But I think that catches passes and things like that. But I love the athleticism that they brought in there. I love the size. You saw that last year. They selected a couple guys that didn't have great. Dobbs is not a big guy. Christian Watson is like one of one in terms of freak show and size and speed and ability. So that'll be fun to watch him grow. But these other guys they brought in, they are big people. They are fast. And then they complemented that with the Jaden Reed pick, who is just electric on the field. So I love that pick, and I love the 2 tight ends. I really look at this draft and the way that the wide receiver core, the offense is shaken out. And Mike, I agree, it would be lovely to have another big time name or even a guy that could help deflect from Christian Watson's. But I see this team right now building itself in the same way that the San Francisco 49ers build their team.
You're going to go heavy back. You're going to go a lot of 12 personnel. Joe DeGuano was talking about that, 2 tight end sets. I think that this will be the first year that Matt LaFleur is going to be able to be fully creative with his offense. Now, the comparison to the San Francisco 49ers, I think, is a good one because you don't need an over-the-top electric QB to be able to work that offense. You use a guy like Deebo Samuel in their offense. Perhaps it's an Aaron Jones / an A.J. Dillon / one of these guys, Musgrave or Kraft. You're going to be able to use, players in a different way. And for that, I think the Packers are going to surprise people. I actually think their first couple of months of the season, depending on how the schedule shakes out, who they're playing at home and who they're playing on the road and when, I think the first couple of months, the Packers could actually find themselves in a pretty good spot because there won't be a lot of tape on any of these guys. And what Matt LaFleur is going to do is going to largely be a bit of a mystery, at least for the first few weeks. So I think it's possible the Packers could open up the season, 4-2, something in that respect, just because they will catch some teams by surprise. And there'll just be wrinkles that other clubs haven't seen. Now, end of the year, we might start to see that return to the mean, and maybe it's an 8-9 win team, because they do have some pretty tough opponents on the schedule this year. But I really like what they did. The draft, just to kind of cap of what you said, they look like they've got positions of need. They hit them in the right spots. They didn't overdraft. Some people think they took Van Ness too high. I don't think he would have lasted really much outside of where he was going to get taken in that 13, 14, 15 spot. So for me, it was a pretty good one. Now, that said, I want to ask your opinion on one other thing, because this guy slipped, and it was just funny because we've seen, guys like Aaron Rodgers do this too. Will Levis, man, falls out of the first round. I win a bet, which Matt from the Recov is yet to pay off and really is just not showing up anymore because I think he's afraid that I'm going to pick on him. He's like, there will be 5 quarterbacks in the top 10 picks. And it's like, okay, pump the brakes. That's not going to happen. These aren't those quarterbacks, right? But what Will Levis did was, one of those unfortunate / kind of good moments on TV. Sat there, good-looking kid, good-looking family, everybody around him, but falls to the second round. How did you think that played on TV? And do you think it was actually probably a right pick then by Tennessee? Because I think they got a decent player for the value spot they got him in.
I agree. And they didn't go up and reach. It sounded like they were maybe trying to go up and get one of those other guys and try to sniff around there, kicking tires on if they could get up to draft one of those other quarterbacks. They couldn't. I think it's just funny TV. I mean, it just, I don't know, all these, sick freaks, hitting on his mom and his girlfriend and his sisters and all the, whatever, man. I mean, everybody's just loving that, and they're going to probably make more money than him now at this point. That's how this kind of works. But, I thought he is a victim of the system here, that he is a guy who was used as a pawn in the game, that there were guys throwing smoke screens all over the place. And the biggest one is the Colts and Ballard and how that works. Like, he clearly, they were throwing smoke screens all around there. And whoever leaked the CJ Stroud stuff may have been Will Levis's, may have been his camp leaking that, or his agent and getting this information out on CJ Stroud's testing scores and intelligence and things like that to maybe pressure people into getting him. And I think people saw that BS and didn't want to take the bait. The fact that he was so high on some of these boards and some people's minds, I didn't understand it. I have just a general rule of thumb that if you can't play, or you got to move around where you're at to go play, and you can't just be special where you're at. And you have to transfer and move around to even a place like Kentucky, that's where you end up at. And that's the spot. You can't play at Penn State, but you can play at Kentucky. And I don't really understand that. I generally think that shows that a guy can't really play. I know Joe Burrow's an exception here. Again, Joe Burrow's kind of one of one, but Josh Allen didn't leave Wyoming to go to Cincinnati. Right. Josh Allen made it at Wyoming and was able to work through that part of it. Patrick Mahomes and these guys that have come out of these smaller type programs or mid-major type places, they don't have to move around. He couldn't make it at Penn State, and so had to go to Kentucky, which isn't even a great place. So I didn't really understand some of this. I just thought he was used as a pawn in the sweepstakes for Anthony Richardson. That to me was what this was. He was being floated out there as the pawn for that. He's a victim of those circumstances, I think, and he probably got picked where he should be picked. I just thought that for the kid, it sucks. I thought Hendon Hooker maybe even is a better prospect than him. There's another guy who had to move around to play and find limited success.
He's too
and an
old.
injury. So I just thought that Will Levis was used as a pawn. It sucks for the kid. Somebody needs to be advising him a little bit better on some of that. But I think all of this was his team was part of that leak, I'm sure, with the CJ Stroud stuff and hoping that CJ Stroud would slip, Anthony Richardson would slip. Will Levis had such a high score that he was going to get picked and start floating some of this stuff out there. But ultimately, he was used as a pawn in the Anthony Richardson sweepstakes and everybody trying to get up to get that kid.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I don't think that take is actually unique to even us. This is just the nature of the business. I mean, we've been talking about this for 20 years. It's all about lying time when it comes to the NFL draft, and who's doing what is, again, largely meant to be subterfuge so that you don't have the whole thing clocked. As a matter of fact, Houston, I give them a ton of credit because nobody had seen what they were doing coming. Nobody saw them trading up 3 to go ahead and get their quarterback and their defensive end. And by the way, I mentioned this to some people yesterday. Houston did, not flashy job, but a pretty good job putting together free agents. They got Mike Gesicki. They got an offensive lineman. They got some defensive players. They got wide receiver. They've got some pieces now. They won't be great, but they'll win 6-7 games probably this upcoming season.
They have a competent coach. They have somebody who knows how to organize and run a team now. I mean, they haven't the last couple of years. It's been just a disaster from Bill O'Brien to Lovie Smith. I mean, come on, let's figure this out here. They have a competent coach now, so I think that is going to be that makes them instantly in the NFL. If you can just have a competent coach who knows what's going on, it doesn't have to always be the best roster. They're all really good rosters. Now they have a competent coach. They're going to win some games, and they put some nice pieces around. And I love them going up and getting. I love them going up and get Will Anderson, the guys that they went and got. I love it.
I do too. I think back to the Anthony Richardson sweepstakes just briefly here. I think that the miss was on the part of the Carolina Panthers, to be fair. And I know that Bryce Young is really talented player and has a lot of the things that you want. But if you look at Carolina, they had some success with a guy pretty similar to Anthony Richardson, actually played at Florida, did transfer to Auburn to win the national championship. But Cam Newton is about as good of a comp for this kid. Now, I think Richardson probably has a better arm than Cam Newton did and ever did. Like Richardson, when you watch him throw the football, Mike, it just leaves his hand so effortlessly. That's the other thing about Will Levis that when I watched his pro day and his combine that I wasn't super impressed with. I mean, he's a big dude and he's got a great looking physique, but he's tight, man. He reminds me of Brady Quinn when he played at Notre Dame. I mean, just really, really tight. He has to push it. He's got a cannon, but it doesn't come off his arm. Josh Allen, you mentioned, same thing. It just came off his arm, which is why he could play at Wyoming. So if you're an XFL team, check out this kid, Hunter Troutman. He played at this school called North Dakota State. He threw in the wind. It was great, and he went downfield. It takes a certain kind of arm to do that, and I think that Richardson is going to be this year's draft. He'll be the best player.
That was my number one pick. If I was picking, I would have taken him. If I was the Bears, I would have kept that pick. I would have traded Justin Fields, and I would have taken this kid. He's a better player. He's a better prospect. That is how I felt the whole time. I think he's the best prospect in the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch him, and hopefully they'll put the right pieces around him in Indianapolis that he'll have a lot of success. But that guy is a no-brainer. Don't when you see spectacular in life,
don't outthink the room.
Don't throw it away. If you see spectacular, there's a reason for it being spectacular. And that guy is spectacular. And that's like Lamar, like, how does that guy slide past every other team in the league and go there? You know what I mean? Like, I understand why, but those are just things that if you have the right coaching, the right organizational structure, it won't matter. So hopefully the Colts have that, and because this kid's going to be special, it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, hopefully the Colts do it. If again, if you're Frank Reich, what you could have done was just stuck it to him and taken that kid. Either way, it's going to be a great, as it always is, NFL season full of storylines. People will, players will be way worse than we thought they were. Some will be way better, and teams will flop and flip all around. That's what makes the NFL so great. Mike, thank you so much. It's been super fun having you on today. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy some of the weather when you can, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Talk to you later, man. Appreciate you.
All right, see you later. Mike Schmidt, Northern State Wolves, and what just a great conversation with Mike. I see that Kyle Hill was checking in here, and he's like, yes, Mike Schmidt to the next level. We need that. Mike's going to get there at some point, but you know what? First up is for Mike and these Wolves winning their conference championship, going to the D2 playoffs, and bringing home some serious hardware. It looks to me, and we'll get into this more as the season progresses with Mike, though, it looks to me like his team, the Wolves, they're going to be in that position this year. So you never know. when those next big stages might be calling him up there. All right, you guys and gals have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'm going to go downstairs, start getting to work at the Recub. We're open at 11. It's Wing Wednesday. Talk to you tomorrow.